love that, Patty. Woo-hoo! That's right. Welcome back to ECE 101, Intro to ECE. You guys did a fantastic job with your assignments from last week. So we're going to continue on into week 2. One thing that I wanted to point out is this week we'll be using our developmental profiles e-text. Oftentimes in this course in week 2, I have some people that get lost because they think that maybe we're still using the Intro to ECE book this week, but we're not. So be sure and flip over to the developmental profiles e-text in your virtual bookshelf, and I think things will make a lot more sense for you. It'll be easier to find things. Also, the Pinterest assignments are amazing. Thank you. You guys found some great things. I've got just a few more people out there that I believe aren't following me yet. I'm having to kind of find you on Pinterest. So be sure you go to Shani Snell Instructor Pinterest page and click on the red button in the upper right-hand corner that says Follow Me, okay? And that just makes it so much easier for me to get to your boards. And I like this little girl in the lower right-hand corner. If you're on a big screen, you can tell it says, keep it up. Don't slow down. Don't start slacking. Don't treat any assignment as something optional. Just be sure you do it all, because I want you to get that A or that B and learn a lot and do well. I want to go over a little bit with week 4 with you guys, with our final paper. Dun, dun, dun. Every once in a while, we do a little research. And for this course, since we go over several different child development or early childhood theorists, I think it's a great opportunity for you to do a little research on one specific one. Maybe you've got one that is your favorite or someone that you'd like to know a little more about. So for our final project, you'll be choosing one specific theorist, and I've listed a few on here, but, oh, Patty, I'm sorry. At first I was like, what? Yeah, that's the last time this course was taught, was December. I did it again. I completely missed that due date. So no, it's not start December 27th. That's right, Kyle. I'll always think, hey, I've got everything right this time, and there'll be a small detail like December 27th in large print, bold at the top of the page. Okay, no, it's not December 27th. Let me look up the correct date. It will be August. It'll be your last day of class, which I believe is 7th. So this final paper will be due August 7th. And you'll be starting externship, Desiree. Oh my goodness. I can't believe it's that time already. And you too, Jessica. Oh my gosh. Wow. Exactly. So have you guys been communicating with Amber already as far as setting up sites go? Have you went to Externship 101? You are tomorrow. Okay, fantastic. Good deal. Good deal. I'm so excited for you guys. There's some really great opportunities out there as far as getting just learning so much from your extern site and getting your foot in the door with a potential center. So I am excited for you guys. I didn't realize it was coming up so fast. It really did sneak up on me. So, okay, so I want you guys to choose for this paper that's not due December 27th, it's due August 7th. I want you to research one specific theorist of your choice. Here's a list: Erik Erikson, John Piaget, Yuri Brinner, B.F. Skinner, Lev Vygotsky, Arnold Gazelle, and Sigmund Freud. So those are just a few that are out of our textbook. If you have someone else, a different theorist from ECE that's maybe in one of our textbooks or that you have covered in another education class, you're welcome to choose someone else. Just be sure and okay it through me first. Okay? And so For your paper, you're going to choose your theorist. You're going to have a minimum of 3 cited sources, and for that, you're going to need to use APA citation, and I'll be passing some links on to you that will help you as far as setting up your APA citation goes. So you can use other books, you might go to the library, you can use online sources. There's lots of information out there on all of these listed. And you're going to submit about a 1,000 word paper. And I know that sounds scary, but it's really not. Once you've included the basics, that's about 2 to 3 double-spaced typed pages. Okay? And you'll be submitting that either with Word or Google Docs, either one. Just be sure you do double space. So here are the questions you enter. What is the specific theorist or theory that this theorist has come up with? Provide 3 key points on the research. What was his or her background? Provide a little background information on the theorist. You do need to be sure on this, guys, that everything is put in your own words, no copy and paste. That would be considered plagiarizing. We take that very serious at the college. So if it's word for word, that is plagiarized. I want you to read the information and put it into your own words. If you do use small sentences right out of their information, be sure you quote it correctly. Number 3, which theorist or theory is similar to the one you've chosen to research, and in what ways are they similar, and in what ways are they different? So you're giving me a little background. Let's say you picked Erik Erikson. So you're going to tell me a little bit about his theories and a little bit about his background, and then you're going to pick one of these other theorists to compare him to. So maybe we're going to compare Erik Erikson to B.F. Skinner. Okay? And you're going to tell me in what ways are they similar and in what ways are they different. Does that make sense? So it makes you do a little comparison of different theorists. And then number 4, what are beliefs of this theorist that you, boy, that's worded wrong. What beliefs of this theorist that you agree with, and let's say which beliefs of this theorist do you disagree with? So you're going to have some that you definitely agree with and some that you're like, I'm not so sure on that. I don't know if I'd go for that at all. Okay? So I wanted you to have that information because this is due in week 4, and I want you to be able to start on it sooner if you can. You're welcome to submit a rough draft for me to overview. I'll let you know if you're on the right track, okay? Woohoo! All right, student question of the week, guys. This is a good one. When do I have to start paying back my student loans? And I know this doesn't have to do with ECE, but just in general. Those of you that have student loans, I know most of you do, I know I do, you have a 6-month grace period after you stop attending classes or you go down to less than half-time. Now with our college, we don't really have a part-time, half-time option. You're full-time. So after you stop taking classes or after you graduate, whichever one comes first, you have a 6-month grace period. Or, that's right, Patty, so you might take 6 months off and then come back. We're okay with that. You can always come back to school to defer your loans, or there's also this amazing thing called income-based repayment plans, because I know a lot of people get stressed out on how much are they going to want me to pay, and am I going to be able to afford that? Well, they have this solution where you apply for income-based repayment plans. They consider how much the family's making, and they base your payments off that. And guys, sometimes your payment can be as low as $50. And of course, this is going to vary depending on how much money is brought in on your gross income. So I want you to be aware of that. I also want you to know about the 6-month grace period. Now, you can start paying back right away if you want, or you can take that 6 months off too. So that was an excellent question. I always like to share a little bit of information. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about some child development theories and a little bit about data gathering, which you're using in several different assignments tonight. So here's my first funny. Not now, dear, I'm busy. And the book says, How to Raise the Perfect Child. So this is where I don't want you to be. I don't want you to be so into the books that you forget the child that's under your care. Now, it's good to do a little studying and to know a little bit about theorists and, of course, a little about child development, but please don't ignore the child while you're at it, right? Bad idea. So why do we study developmental theories? First of all, it gives us explanations of lifespan changes, how children grow and develop, what factors influence growth and development, and the idea of nature versus nurture, which I always love debating on. And it's great to be able to study these lifespan changes and then pick people out in your life that are maybe in certain stages, so you can understand better maybe a toddler that's in your life or a kindergartner or first grader that's in your life. You can tell exactly where they're at, and it may even help you explain some issues that a child or a friend is having. So great sources of information. They help us understand how to promote children's development. We want to be able to enrich them, recognize developmental delays or irregularities, and we're going to talk about those in a minute. Now, you might be wondering why there's a multicolor pyramid in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen. Well, I'm going to completely dork out on you for a minute, okay? Since we're talking about theorists, I wanted to bring up my favorite, Maslow. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And have any of you guys studied Maslow's before? You have. Okay, great, Patty. Anybody else? Has anybody else had any experience with Maslow's hierarchy? Just recently. Okay, great. "15 years ago." Okay, well, it's still the same. Now you know. Maslow came up with this hierarchy of needs that if you start down at the bottom with the physiological, that's the base need that everyone has. And so we apply that to the children in our classroom that are under our care. So with Maslow, you have to fulfill the need in each spot before you can bump up to the next rung, okay? So physiological needs, are their basic needs being met? Did they eat breakfast before school? Do they have clean clothing? Do they have a safe place to go home? And are they able to eat, sleep well at night? All of these things affect everything else. And unfortunately, we can't necessarily control these, but we may be able to enhance them a little bit with our resources. The second run, once these are taken care of, the physiological needs, then we go up to our safety needs. And this is where the child feels emotionally and physically safe. So they feel safe at school. Their class routines aren't crazy, and then they're varied each day. They're predictable. They have access to counselors, a nurse. They're okay with taking some risk. I knew a special education teacher at one point who, and these were younger kids too in her classroom, she was really big about changing the setup of her classroom. Almost every week she would change around the desk or the bookshelves or the chairs. And this really threw off the routine, and she really didn't realize how it was affecting the kids because she thought, well, I'm just changing the classroom. But they really need consistency, especially with special education children. So once they feel safe and secure, they then move on to belonging, forming relationships, friends, getting along with adults, hopefully. We then move up to esteem building. They have a positive classroom culture. They're getting good and bad feedback. Either way, they learn from it. And then the last spot is self-actualization. So the student is available to learn. They are open to learning, and they're excited about it. So can you see as a teacher, if we have not met, this child's physiological needs have not been met on this bottom rung, maybe they're still hungry, they didn't have breakfast before school, maybe they have the same clothes on for the second or third day in a row, maybe they don't feel safe at home. There's lots of things that could be going on in their life that you think doesn't affect how they act in the classroom or their learning, but all of these things do. So this is when we sit down and we take a good look at the child and we find out what's going on in their life to try to get them up to one of these higher rungs so that they can achieve and they can learn. So Maslow's, absolutely love. And here's Maslow's hierarchy to include Wi-Fi. Yes, that's a joke, but you know how we are nowadays. If we don't have our Wi-Fi, all of those other things are thrown off. Okay, a few other theories. Hi, Jasmine, how are you? Good, I'm glad you made it. Fantastic. Okay, Sigmund Freud is always a great one to talk about, right? And if you look at the bottom, I like these slides because according to where the red dot is at the bottom, it gives you an idea of where they're at on the scale of nurture or nature. Okay, so nature refers to a child, what they're born with, their genes, how they were born, who their mom and dad is, you know, the genetic things that they have. And nurture refers to how they've been raised, what type of home they were in, how much love they've received, the care that they've received. And so Sigmund Freud was kind of in the middle there, a little bit towards the nurture side. His main points: experiences in early childhood influence later development, everything that a child goes through. Assumes sexual factors are major factors, even in early childhood. Some of his key words: psychodynamic, psychosexual, libido, oral stage, anal stage, phallic stage, latency, genital stage, ID, ego, superego, and all of his complexes and consciousness. So, and we can sort of compare him with our other theorists as well. And I know he kind of looks like a grumpy guy, but he really did contribute a lot to our understanding of development. Okay, our next theorist is Arnold Gesell, about 1880 to 1861. If we hop right down here at the bottom, you'll notice he definitely leaned more towards nature. In other words, we're born the way we're going to be. So his main points: developmental genetically determined by universal maturation patterns, which occur in a predictable sequence. And yes, we do have lots of predictable sequences in development. For instance, we generally learn how to crawl before we walk. I'm not saying that some kids don't break that rule. We tend to crawl forward, some kids crawl backward. That's what one of mine did. Milestones, normative development. He was a native as far as nature language development goes. So he was very big into the genetic aspects of how we develop, right? And next we have, and this one's a little blurry, I'm sorry, I couldn't find a good solid picture of this one, is B.F. Skinner. And you guys got to go a little bit into B.F. Skinner with this week's discussion board, where you got to pretend like you are B.F. Skinner and what you would do for this parent. So He's very much into the idea of reinforcement. Punishment molds behavior. Children are conditioned by all of their experiences. And you'll see down here on our sliding scale that B.F. Skinner leans a lot more towards the nurture side. So he basically believes that we shape the children in our lives. And it depends on what they go through, and that we can shape them to be better. That's the whole idea. He believed in operant conditioning, positive, negative reinforcement, consequences, rewards, social learning theory, and behavioral learning theory. So he also contributed a lot to our area. Now, all of these men and some women in our book as well have helped develop these theories and help us better understand the children that are in our care. Now, we do have to know, even though we know that things happen in a predictable pattern, that we can make an impact. Each child is unique and different depending on what family they came from, the experiences they've had, their family life, the culture that they've been raised in, the type of communication that they've received. And you guys know from those of you that have been in the program that children in lower income families, they find out, tend to hear fewer words per day than families in middle and upper income. Now, that's just in general. But now that we know that, a lot of child development programs that assist lower income families really focus on the idea of our children hearing more words on a daily basis to help them develop. So communication is so important. Also, their health, what have they gone through? Did they have some type of, maybe they had a disease that put them in a hospital, or a condition that put them in a hospital at a young age. That can make a difference. And their temperament. We're each born with a different temperament. So we do have some developmental variations. Isn't that cute? We have typically developing child, and all these terms are in your book in Chapter 1. We have an at-risk child, which development may be affected by medical or learning problems. And with an at-risk child, we want to be able to identify them as early as possible. And this may be as simple as having a little reading problem. Maybe they need glasses, things that are easily, hopefully, fixable. And then we have an atypically developing child. So the development does not conform to expectations. And a big one that stands out in my mind here is when children start to walk. So we actually give them up to about 1.5 years before we really start to worry in that area. So if we had a child that's over 1.5 years, maybe 2 years old, that wasn't walking yet, that would definitely be atypical and a cause for concern. We'd be doing some I don't know, maybe some x-rays. We'd be doing some testing to find out what might not be working as well as it should be, and then hopefully doing some therapy to help correct that if possible, or some braces, or so many different things that come into play there. So typically developing, at risk, and atypically developing. You need to know those terms. And lastly, or near to the last, let me see here, guys. Yeah, almost there. The importance of data gathering. And this is another one that you're going to use. I believe it's one of your assignments this week. We talk a little bit about data gathering. And I thought it would be a good idea to bring these out. What we know about children stems from firsthand observation, from watching a child. This is where it all began. These theorists sat down. They watched a classroom full of kids. Some of them watched their own grandkids as far as study subjects go. Some of these gathered their research from many different schools. So we go about it different ways, but all of it starts from one teacher sitting down with the classroom and watching and observing. Very important. We want to have authentic assessment with our children. child is evaluated in his or her natural environment is the most reliable. So if we're looking for an issue, the best place to watch may not necessarily be in the school. The best place would be at home, maybe doing a home visit. Second best would be school, but we definitely want to drive them into a completely foreign environment and try to observe their behavior, because it just wouldn't be natural for them. They'd be stressed out. We wouldn't get good results. Observations are an essential component of the evaluation process. And here's a few different observations that we might use. And these are sometimes easy to confuse. So anecdotal notes, number one, is a brief description or word picture of an event. This might be a few sentences. It might be a paragraph. It might be jotted down on an index card or in a notebook. And this type of observation might be something very informal that you even share with a parent. You might say, hey, this happened today. And it's a good idea to write it down when it happens, because we tend to think we're going to remember all those things, but we're not. We want to get as many details down as possible. And we can do that with anecdotal notes. Next, a time or event sampling is basically measuring a frequency of a behavior or tracking development over the week, month, or year. So you might have a sampling that you do once a month per child, and if you do that each month over the school year, you'll be able to look back on those samplings and see how things have changed. Not just try to remember it or think about how the child was at the first of the year. You're going to have actual evidence of how this child is developing. Or a frequency and duration count. Now, one big one that I think of on this one, and we run into it all the time in ECE, is biting. Yeah, kids do it sometimes. We can't always control it. But we definitely have to observe, try to figure out what the triggers are, and at one point we may just simply start with counting how often it happens. So we may have to make a tally mark of how often this happens. And I spoke to one parent who actually said that her child bit 20 times in one day at daycare. You know, and that's really, it's rough to do, it's rough to handle. She was really at the end of her rope, and that's when a little research and help from the doctors comes in, even, because 20 times is a lot of biting. We got to figure out what's going on. We got to be those detectives in that instance. Checklist. Some teachers use, that's a good question because it's still being resolved, Patty. I know, I wish I could give you the end of that. So I'll let you know if I hear of it soon. Yeah. I gave as many tips and hints that I could think of. Yeah. As far as checklist goes, some teachers will use a developmental checklist with a child at the first of the year to sort of see where they're at. Are they using words? Are they forming short sentences, 2 to 3 word sentences? Are they able to identify their colors? Are they able to write out their name or their numbers depending on an older child, right? So we may use a checklist, and you guys will be researching different checklists on the internet here pretty soon. And lastly, a portfolio. And this is exactly how it sounds, you know. As a student, you'll sometimes put together a portfolio of your work to show the things that you've done. We do the same thing in ECE, and let me tell you what, this is fantastic, not just for an observation standpoint, but it's a wonderful thing to be able to give a parent at the end of the year. If you start a portfolio, it could be as simple as a folder at the first of the school year, and just periodically put in pieces of work or pieces of artwork, or maybe even pictures that were taken of the child through the school year, and give that to a parent or family at the end, and it's a great keepsake for them. But it's also a great tool so that you can look back on that child's development and you can tell, are they drawing better than they were at the first of the year? Are they adding more details to their pictures of people or of animals? So portfolios can be really fantastic. So you need to be familiar with these for your assignment. One of the assignments this week: anecdotal notes, time event sampling, frequency or duration. Remember, frequency and duration is more like a tally mark or timing an event, checklist, and portfolios. Okay? And my last quote: education is what survives when what has been learned has been forgotten. Yeah, that's a B.F. Skinner, and of course I love his too. So it really, you know, we do so much. We do these classes and you guys learn these dates and these theories and stuff, but there may be just a few things that you actually remember out of each course, and eventually you'll be applying that in your own classroom, and that's what I want you to shoot for. Okay? Are there any questions tonight, guys? Anything that you can think of as far as like our project goes, assignments for this a week? No, Matt? All right. And Kyle, is your wife doing okay? I keep meaning to ask and I keep forgetting. No questions? Okay, great. Thanks, Jasmine. Thanks, Sarah. You guys go on and have a great night. She's doing well. Oh, fantastic, Kyle. Great. Speedy healing. That's right. You guys have a good rest of your week. Oh, Walter's doing great, Patty. He's getting bigger and bigger. He's as big as a duck now, but he still has baby feathers. I still don't know if he's a boy or girl. Goose. He has to be a goose. He looks so much like them. So thank you for asking. You have a good night too, Patty. Oops. Oh, Marilyn, are you still there?